We left off in Mimer on page Lamed base, last line on the page. We had a question. We asked the Rebbe started asking a question, how is it?
Ariel, welcome.
Any question? I'm sorry. So we left off with a question the Rebbe asked. Why was it necessary that in Mamor Chassidus, in Kabbalah, he goes into a lengthy explanation of the topics of Mata Mata the Intachlis, of how low that the Friedrich Rebbe spoke in the Maimer. Gimel of Basel Legani, he enumerates how low the Chayes of the key comes down into Klippus, and because of that, he's discussing all the different lower levels in Klippus, and in Eitz Chaim we find two Sha'arim, two sections that deal with Klippus. Why was it necessary to speak about such with such length and such explanation about Klippus? And again, in the view and the approach of the Rebbe with everything, that we avoid speaking in the negative, we only speak in the positive, etc., etc. So it's even more difficult, this question: why would we engage and speak about things that have that are negative? So the Rebbe first poses the following. Line 26, last line, Lamed base. Seemingly, we say the explanation on this. The Kivan top of Lamed Gimel Sheistakel by Raisa Bara, since Hashem looked into the Torah and He created the world, to be able to come into being all the specific levels of the other side of Klip. The way it arose in His will because of a concealed reason. In other words, we do not know why the Eibishter wanted all these levels in Klippus. But for whatever reason, He wanted multiple levels in Klippus. So to be able to bring them into being. So since everything comes into being through Torah, so first there has to be that the Eibishter looks into the Torah. The call in Yonim Elu B'Chola Pratim Pratim Tzrichim Lias B'Tchila B'Torah B'Kabbalah Chassidus, that all these matters and all the details of their details need to be initially in the Torah of Kabbalah and Chassidus, and that is why they were recorded in Kabbalah. That's why they're recorded in Chassidus. That's how they are in existence. If they wouldn't have been recorded there, then they wouldn't have been in existence. And why are they existing? Tama comes, we don't know, concealed reason, for whatever reason. Then the Rebbe goes on, line 7, Inyan Zeguf, this very idea. Isavas Mitzias Aklippus, ideas which is talked about the coming into being of the existence of Klippus, through the fact that the Eibishter looked into Torah, Tushlam Tachsakavona is for the sake that the ultimate purpose should be fulfilled. The Maimon, as Chazal say, everything that David created in this world, He didn't create it only for His glory, only for His sake. Like the teaching of Baal Shem, when it says, turn away from bad and do good, means not that they're two separate avoiders. One avoider is turn away from bad. Another avodah is asay toiv, but rather Baal Shem Tov says that asay toiv is referring to the ra. There's two things you have to do with the ra. First thing you do with the ra is sur merah. The second thing you do with the ra is sheyasem merah toiv. You make the bad into good. What it says, turn away from bad, is only the beginning of the avodah. That's the first step. The first step of the avodah is to be sur merah. Avol shleim is avodah loidak sur merah, but the perfection of the avodah is not just turning away from bad. Elagam asay mara toiv, sheyasem mara toiv. That's the ultimate avodah, to transform the bad and to turn the bad into good. So therefore, that's the idea of transforming darkness to light, and bitterness to sweet, like the Lashon of Zohar. So the Rebbe wants to, it's interesting, the Rebbe is going to go on the next few lines in showing that this is not just a Kabbalah thing. One might think that this idea of transforming darkness to light is something from Kabbalah. Where do we find this in Nigla? So the Rebbe right away says what we find this in Halacha, B'Lashain Halachas, Doinus Naslik Izach, that we find that there's the idea of darkness itself being turned over to light. Where do we find this? What Halacha brings down, that through Tshuva, that the intentional Avedas can become, they themselves can become merits and mitzvahs. So that means that the darkness itself becomes transformed to light. It's not just turning away from bad, but it's taking the bad and making it toy. The Rebbe even goes further, that there's a concept that sometimes the Chazal will say something, will say halacha, but then they will strengthen that by bringing a Ma'aseh Rav. Ma'aseh Rav means the strength and the power of seeing an action, that the person did not just rule this as a theoretical ruling, but a Ma'aseh of a Rav, a Ma'aseh of a great person, which shows that this is not just halacha, but halacha l'ma'aseh. Where do we see this? That this actually occurred in such a type of way, of a transformation of darkness to light. It says that the Gemara tells a story that the very sheets and the very bedding that she spread out for him in a prohibited manner, she spread out for him now in a permitted manner. It's talking about someone that was going to do an Aveda with a non-Jew, and he was inspired for whatever reason to stop, and she was so impressed that she converted to Yiddishkeit, and eventually they got married. And the Gemara says, instead of, or the very like sheets and bedding that they were gonna use for Isser before, now she is giving him beheter. So in other words, we find this transformative nature of taking the bad and transforming it into good. So this is an everlasting directive for every single Yid, that he has the capability to transform the bad to good. If it would just say, maybe the Rebbe is trying to say this, if you only say in the Zohar, says, okay, maybe it's Shaykh, the Mukabolim, etc., they could transform bad to good, darkness to light, bitter to sweet. But this is brought down in the Gemara, it's brought down in Allah, it's brought down in Ma'aseh Rav, that this actually occurred. And since Torah is from the word Hira, so therefore this is obligatory, and it's incumbent upon every single Yid to work in that vein, to transform the bad into good. This idea of transforming the bad to good is also understood from what the Alter Rebbe writes, that we have to make a home for the Eibusher down here below. And what does Tachtoinim mean? The Alter Rebbe explains what does it mean down here below, in something that is low, that there's nothing lower than it. This included also the lowest most thing, that it's the lowest to the low to no end. In other words, when we say that the Dira B'Tachtoinim is a Dira B'Tachtoinim, it means every single level, even those levels that we're saying in the Maimer of the Friedrich Rebbe, that is Lamata Dein Tachlis, the lowest levels in Klippas, that has to be transformed as well. Shagam Boitzorach Liflag in Yadirim, that also in the lowest of the low, in the Lamata Dein Tachlis, the Friedrich Rebbe speaks about in his Maimer, you have to affect and make a home for the Eibusher. How is that? Top of page Lamadal through transforming it to good. So now the question is, how can one do so? How is that possible? When it comes to matters of Klippas Noiga, I could understand. Klippas Noiga are things that I could use, I could engage in, I could transform. I eat kosher food. I make a bracha before, I make a bracha afterwards. I'm elevating it. I do other kosher activities. I go to work, etc., etc. I could elevate it as well. But there are aspects of Klippa, there's aspects of Lamata Mata Dein Tachlis that I'm not supposed to engage in, that I'm not supposed to be involved in. How are those going to be transformed to good through every single Yid? How are those going to be, the darkness going to be elevated to light, which is the purpose why even the Lamata Mata was created. That's the Rebbe asks, line 1 on page Lamed Dal, the movement seemingly it's not understood. We daven and request, do not bring me to a test, not bring me to be nichshol chas v'sholem, or to even risk being nichshol navera. This is something the Rebbe says in by Fabrengens. I remember the Rebbe saying that every Yid says this, even the holiest Jew, and even the holiest time of year, like Yom Kippur. So every single day of the year, every single the whole being of a Yid is always requesting from the Eibishter, they shouldn't bring us to a test. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem fulfills our requests and helps us out with that we should be kept away from this Yonis Vim Kain. If so, how is it possible to demand from every single Yid to be involved also in the refining of that which is so much below to no end, since we cannot engage with the clippers, especially according to what's written in the Zohar, it says boil pari. So in the beginning of last week's parsha, where it says that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, come to Pari. Rab Shimon Maxi, Rab Shimon said, what does it say? Boil Pari, come to Pari. Leichal Pari with boil. It should have instead said, go to Pari. My boy, why does it say come to Pari? Ella, rather, why does it say come to Pari? The ayah kuchabrichul Moshe idrin idrin, that Hashem took in Moshe rooms and chambers within chambers in the levels of the external ones of the klippos, that the Eibishter took in Moshe Rabbeinu in levels within levels. But Moshe was scared of those deepest, most klippos, as it was a level of Pari, and he did not approach. Since Hashem saw that Moshe Rabbeinu was scared, so the Eibishter said, or it says in the pasuk in Yecheskel, we had this last night of Parshas Va'era, that says, behold, I am upon you. Hashem said, I am over you, Pari Melch Mitzrayim. The great serpent that is crouching within his waterways within the Nile. And Hashem had to go into battle with Parai and no one else. In other words, that the Eibishter himself had to take on the klippos. So when Nimtza comes out, that Moshe Rabbeinu was scared to come and to be involved in refining the lowest of the low. Even after he was told and commanded, come to Pari. Hashem agreed with Moshe Rabbeinu. In other words, Hashem validated Moshe Rabbeinu's fear. He didn't tell him, what are you scared of? I sent you. No, Hashem said, I'll come with you. Like I said, behold, I am upon you, Pari. I will take care of Pari. So therefore, if even Moshe Rabbeinu was scared to engage with the lowest of the low, as opposed to the teachings of Kabbalah, it teaches about all the details of so much, so down below. When we say, this is the mission and job that was given to the soldiers. They should refine even the lowest levels to no end. They should elevate and deal with the lowest of the low. When Moshe Rabbeinu himself was scared to deal with the worst klippos like Pari. Any questions? Okay, we're holding on the bottom of page Lamedal, hey, line 25. You've this be understood. Al Peter Saravamag Alapasi, the man Shisi Oisasai Ela Bekir but Shabbos Cholos Parshas Boy. As Richard Maggid says in the pasuk at the beginning of Parshas Boy, it says that for the sake that I will place my signs, Oisasai means my signs, I will place my signs within him. It says that at the beginning of Parshas Boy, concerning the last three makkos, that's in the Parshas Boy, he speaks about the last three makkos. So when speaking about those last three makkahs, he says, I should place my signs within it. So the Mizrich Magid is going to make a play on words over here. He's going to, instead of calling it, instead of translating it oisai in its simple sense from the word signs, he's going to translate it from the word oisai, my letters. What does it mean, my letters? So here's what the Mizrich Magid says, line 27. The fish HaKadosh Baruch Hu hayroitz halavar kol hamitzvot mitzrayim minash kvirim. Hashem wanted to refine all the sparks that were there in Mitzrayim because of the Shviras HaKelim, the breaking of the vessels of Tayu. What does that mean? Hainu kol hadvarim betelim shel parim shel Mitzrayim shem oisius. All the useless, unnecessary words of Pari of Mitzrayim, that these are letters. So that's the oisai side. He wanted to, there was the oisius of Dvarim B'Telim, there was the letters and words of the Dvarim B'Telim that were in that is embedded sparks that fell down from the Shviras HaKelim of Tayu. So B'zeh yih birur v'hichnis hadiburim tap blamed heish hichnis hadiburim voices elu ba'toidam v'as ben siruf achar shel kedusha. He took these very words of and letters of the Dvarim B'Telim of Pari and Mitzrayim, and he made from them a different combination and put them into put them into Torah and made them a different combination of Kedusha, just like we say earlier in the Maimer. And we make a different siruf, a different combination. Instead of sheker, you transform, you turn it around the letters, you make it keresh. So you're taking that chayes of klippah, of the sheker of the world, and you turn it into the keresh for the mishkan. The same thing, we take the different letters, the different oisius, that's the Dvarim B'Telim of Pari Mitzrayim, and we change it around and we elevate it, and it becomes the words of Torah itself. Like you're soon going to say, the stories in Torah that relate that what happened to Pari of Mitzrayim is the turning around of the letters of Klippus that were initially there in Mitzrayim. And that's the refinement. That's what it means that I am placing these letters. In other words, he's taking the letters that were in Mitzrayim and putting them into Torah. Torah means to say, the letters that came down from the breaking of the vessels of Tayu, and you have to find them through Torah. Therefore, it was necessary for Hashem to send another 3 makkahs against Mitzrayim, which is what the simple meaning of the pasuk that Leman Shisi Oisai Eila B'Kirbi is referring to. It's referring to additional makkahs to put them into the letters, the combinations of the Torah. If, let's say, the Eibishter would have manipulated the situation that the Yidden would have left Mitzrayim before the final 3 makkahs that it speaks about in Parshas Boy, they would have gone out, let's say, right away at the end of Parshas Va'eda, before we got to the 3 makkahs that are talking about in Parshas Boy, it would have been missing many stories about what took place in Mitzrayim that would not have been written in the Torah. But calling it soiches, and all the sparks that had to be elevated from Mitzrayim would not have been elevated. So these letters that were initially in Klippa now became transformed into the very letters in the stories of the Torah that related the final 3 makkahs. So the Rebbe is going to elaborate on this part of the Mizrich Shemayim. Line 11, page line. The idea behind this is Hine Gama is Lamata, the Laparim Melt Mitzrayim, or the Eretz Mitzrayim, Eretz Sa'ada. It's also those letters that fell down by the Shviras HaKelim to Pari Melech Mitzrayim, to Pari the king of Mitzrayim, and to the land of Mitzrayim, which is the most lowest and the most immoral of the earth. In truth, they are my oisais. What does it mean? They are my letters, and not just any level of letters. Vadrab, Kol Agavoya, Gavoya B'Yois, and Neufel Mata, Mata B'Yois. Just the opposite, the higher something is, falls even lower. So the fact that it came into Pari Melch Mitzrayim and it came into the land of Mitzrayim, which is the lowest of the earth, so that indicates how high these letters, how high these sparks are. And our job is to return them to a state and situation of my letters, Isis to Kedusha, to letters of Kedusha. Therefore, they were initially written in the Torah. When they are written in the Torah, the very same letters that were part of the Dvarim B'Teilim of Parai were now written in the Torah. So they are transformed and they are changed around. And they empower us that we should be able to refine the letters even after they fell down in the Shviras HaKelim of Torah. Though the expression of the language used in the Mezritcher Maggid's teaching is the useless words, the unnecessary words of Pari and Mitzrayim, seemingly this has no connection to refining the matters that are lower than it. In other words, Dvarim B'Teilim is not the most severe type of Aveda, and it's not necessarily an Aveda under certain conditions. If a person's in a place where he can't speak the Torah, he can get away with speaking Dvarim B'Teilim. Should he is a different question, but the point is, it's not the worst of klippas. So therefore, here we're trying to speak about how one has to elevate and transform the lowest of klippas through engaging and learning it in Torah, and that's how a Yid elevates even those aspects of klippas that he cannot engage in. Matters of Shalosh Tzad Meyes, but over there, the Mezritcher Maggid was not talking about the lowest klippas. So the Rebbe says, line 23, Mikol Makim still in all the pasuk does not leave the simple meaning. What's the simple meaning that the pasuk is talking about? And the simple reading of the pasuk, when we talk about Leman to place my signs within him, the signs that the Eibishter is referring to is the additional three makis. He's talking about the three additional marks that Hashem brought on Mitzrayim, the most lowest of the earth, and on Pari, the king of Mitzrayim, the great serpent that crouches within his Ye'od. They said that the Ye'od, the Nile is mine, and I made myself. And once the Eibishter brought down the final three markers on the Mitzrayim, Shaydez and Nasa Habirur, the Pari, Mitzrayim, Pipshutin, page Lamed Vav, that through this becomes the literal and simple meaning of Pari Mitzrayim becoming refined. Meaning because they were broken and they were now stopped interfering with the purpose and the mission of what they were there for. To such a state and level that the refinement was that they actually got to a state where Pari sent out the nation. Now Pari doesn't say Pari freed the Yidden or let the Yidden go, but it says B'Shalach Parisam, that Pari sent them. What does it mean he sent them? In other words, Pari himself contributed and made the Yitzhak of Mitzrayim. Like it's explained at length in the Mamorim titled with this possible of the Tzemach Tzedek and Reb Marash. The idea of the Reb Marash is the year when the Rebbe said this Maimer in Tavshin Mem Gimel, it was 100 years since the Rebbe Marash passed away. So he says the Pari Mishaleach Hoyros, that Pari was sending out branches. In other words, what's it mean he was sending out branches or sticks and so on? In other words, he was like contributing. Also, Pari assisted the going out of Mitzrayim, like the Kosel, like it says in the pasuk that when Pari refused to let the Yidden take their cattle and animals along, and he said, "Okay," after a lot of negotiation and pressures, he said, "Okay, you can go, the men, women, and children, Gesundheit, but leave your animals." So Moshe Rabbeinu told him, not only will we take all of our animals, but it says, "Gam ata titim biyodenu." You also will give in our hands oilers and zvachim, etc., and animals to slaughter and so on. So, in other words, we see that Pari himself gave up from himself and involved himself in the Yetziat of Mitzrayim. So that indicates that through that became a greater elevation. This is what it says concerning Gauls Mitzrayim, that I will plant it for me in the earth. What does it mean that I will plant it for me in the earth? What's the idea of planting? What takes place when a person plants? In Nazariya who can Razal, like the idea of planting is like Chazal say. If a person plants a core amount of wheat kernels, etc., so the reason is not to get back the identical amount how much he planted. He plans to be able to have grown many times as much kurit. So the same way, the Golus Mitzrayim was in such a type of way. That was no way of planting that after the Golus, we should get back so much more. That also the letters, the sparks of Pari, were refined and they became my letters. All of this is through them being written initially in the Torah. So then they are able to be elevated from Mitzrayim. Now the Rebbe is going to explain. This is the same idea why we learn in Torah about all the different levels in Klippa of Lamata Mata in Tachlis that the Friedrich Rebbe enumerates in his Maimer. It's enumerated in different places. Line 16 on page Lamed Vav. According to this, we can explain though we are requesting, do not bring me to a test. Still in all, we can demand from every single Yid to be involved in refining matters that are very, very low. Because the intention in it is to refine them through being involved in studying these matters the way they're written in Torah. We're not engaging chas v'sholom with them. We're not chas v'sholom being nichshol and chas v'sholom transgressing an aveda and then doing tshuva, but rather by learning those topics in Torah, by learning about klippas in Torah, so we are elevating them. Similar to what we find concerning avodah zarah. Though we were commanded, do not turn to Elilim, to avodah zarah. Why does it say do not turn to avodah zarah? It should say do not serve avodah zarah, do not bow down to avodah zarah, do not make them your gods. What's the idea of turning? The idea of turning is not to do things that will bring you on the road to avodah zarah. Azal say, what does that mean? Also, it's prohibited to read those books that explain how is the main way, how it's served, what are its actions, what are its rules. Why? By studying those books, it causes a person chas v'sholom turn and be attracted and get involved in avodah zarah. Afal PK. Despite that, we were commanded to learn the entire Torah. Including also the that in it was explained many details and the way how we serve it. So therefore, the reason why that is so is because we're learning it in Torah, there's no worry. The specific matters of avodah zarah the way they're written in Torah. If a person picks up a Gemara Avodah Zarah, he picks up a Masech Sanhedrin, he picks up a Pasuk Chumash and Rashi that speaks about Avodah Zarah, he learns the Rambam about the halachos of Avodah Zarah, he learns in Shulchan Aruch the halachos of Avodah Zarah. So then it becomes a matter of Torah to such a degree. He would even make a Birchas HaTorah. He makes a bracha on learning Torah. Top of page Lamed Zayt. That's explained in a different place. B'nei Yaakov, so that it says, Rashi says in the beginning of Parshas told us, what's it mean? Ela told us Yitzchak says the Yaakov and Esav that are spoken about in the Parsha. That's what's it mean? It's spoken about in the Parsha. Shagam Esav Amur beParsha Chelik meTorah. Even when it says Esav, but it's said in the Torah, it's part of Torah, even though it's talking about Esav. Therefore, when we're studying in Torah the laws of Avodah Zarah, in days that go from Avodah Zarah, through that itself, we nullify the Avodah Zarah. Especially when we study the halacha shabbat, that afterwards comes to doing it in action. There has to be, you have to completely, you have to discuss it and you have to destroy it. So therefore, so then by studying it, so then we are affecting the existence of the Avodah Zarah. Until an Avodah Zarah, it's very, very much below. Till even Avodah Zarah that proclaims, to me is the Nile and I made myself. From studying that, we are completely nullifying, destroying the Avodah Zarah. So the same thing, we are learning about the Klippos, because through learning about the Klippos, we are completely and totally and utterly destroying them. And that is their birur, that is the way we are refining them and elevating without engaging with them. Chas v'sholom. Any questions?